let's start with the free speech crackdown, because I mean we talked about this on Truthwire. This is insane. This is the free speech. Trump is doubling down right now on free speech, and his space is going along with this. It's pretty wild. We have all these arrests and these disappearances and kidnappings. I mean, it's insane. Ever since the Mahmoud Khalil situation at Colombia, and by the way, he's still being detained, and there are protests going on all over the place. Let me show a little bit of this. Is actually was from New York yesterday. Let me just grab I didn't load all the files yet. My bad. Let me do this. Okay, so we have this protest from yesterday. So you guys, just to catch you up, this is still in the works, and then we're going to get to the newer stuff as well. I'm going to get your guys' thoughts on that. But this is New York yesterday, a protest for Mahmoud Khalil, and this is basically the one that kicked off all these ones that are happening now. It seems like they're just happening constantly now. But there's people in the streets for Mahmoud. Here we go.
We're here today to demand the immediate release of Mahmoud Khalil, who was illegally abducted from his home.
Mahmoud was detained for no other reason than the fact that he was speaking out against the slaughter of his own people.
It's straight up fascism. It's a threat to everyone.
This is a massive escalation on our civil liberties just for speaking out against the genocide that is happening to our people.
So the arrest was on March 8th. Sorry. Let me pause this because I realized that this was the immediate protest. There was a follow-up on the Twitter account on what's happening. We still don't know his status as of today. So the arrest was on March 8th. We had the protest that started on the 10th, and here we are. It's like 17 days later, and there's still no answers as far as what's going on with him. Let me get to the new one, and then I want you guys your feedback, because I just want to catch people up. This is all connected. If we don't stop this now, if enough of the MAGAs are acting like that this is okay, that this is not, they're saying it's not about free speech. We see all of their Twitter posts and saying, oh no, this is nothing to do with that. We have to stop the terrorism. We know what that language means, and it leads to things like this. This is a mass arrest that happened yesterday. This is absolutely insane that this is going on. Again, this is for people who are doing these are nonviolent protests. These are situations where people are being vocal and they're getting punished for being vocal about funding genocide. This is an arrest that took place yesterday, and notice how the men in masks that are arresting her keep their masks on and make sure, because it's very much trying to stay under the radar.
I thought Donald Trump said that there's no more masks at these things.
Yeah, right. Only the protesters can't have masks, but of course the thugs coming in to arrest them can.
You guys covering your faces? You want to take those masks off? Is this a kidnapping? Yeah, you don't look like it. Why are you hiding your faces? Why are you hiding your faces?
The fucking people doing that feeling justified they can do that shit. It's just so ridiculous. And it's just the height of hypocrisy.
Yeah.
Everything we saw for that Biden administration was set up.
Can I see some faces here?
How do I
know this is the police?
Yeah. And the guy said, how do we know that this is the police? Which is a legitimate question, because this is basically a gang kidnapping. You might as well just throw you in a van and just pull away, like we've seen in so many movies. You might as well just pull away, and we'll hear the sound of the car. Why are you even going as slow as you are, pretending this is like some sort of procedural thing? Well, let's find out who this woman is. This is what we know. This is a grad student who co-authored anti-genocide article in the student newspaper.
Yeah.
And she was being arrested by this group in masks.
Yeah.
And that's the footage we just watched. It's
Matt, we saw this behavior. Yeah. We were at a Nancy Pelosi protest. I wore a chicken outfit. You know, Nancy doesn't debate. And I'll never forget Fiorella said pasta with Johnny. Like, there's been something going on in Portland. We got to go up there and see what's going on. There's some mass protests going on. In the streets, people were just driving up, grabbing people, throwing them in the vans, not reading their rights. They were doing this, and this was during the first Donald Trump campaign, and now they're repeating this here again, right? The same type of behavior. And this is at the height of hypocrisy here. The Constitution clearly states that anybody in this country, legal or illegal, has the right to due process. Not only the fact, too, as well, they have the right to be tried in the area they were arrested in the county, whatnot. Mahmoud Khalil has been moved to where? Indiana or Illinois, or he was moved to a different state, right? Everything that they're doing right now and using this act of 1798 to do this, they can do this to anybody. This is your Fourth Amendment rights getting flushed down the toilet. This is your First Amendment rights getting flushed down the toilet. This is at the height of hypocrisy right now. This is some dangerous times what's going on. And like I said, this was all set up from the ridiculous overreach from the left so the right could justify doing it. We've said this from the get-go. Both sides don't care about freedom of speech. They just have different boogeymen. That's it.
Yeah. Fiorella, what if you can chime in here? I know we obviously been covering the Mahmoud Khalil situation, and then now these ones are happening. They seem that they're happening more and more. This particular woman, I mean, how are they going to be able to frame this? What is going to be the framing of this, saying she wrote a paper, she wrote an article about that's anti-genocide? How can they spin that, or do they even need to spin it? Does Trump even need to spin anything anymore? And he just says that's violence, doing exactly what the left did about words are violence. I guess words in a school paper condemning genocide is violence, and it's a threat to our democracy, and we need to get rid of her. What do you think the spin's going to be, Fee?
Well, I think the spin's going to be we need to protect the security of the United States from the possible terrorists coming in, being pushed by Iran and going through our border, which is where for a long time, even before Trump came in, that was what he was campaigning on, that there were going to be weapons smuggled from Iran through the border. So all of this is interconnected, and I've talked about it. We talked about it last time, but I think what people need to understand is this is only possible because of several former actions taken in different prior administrations. So after the war in Iraq and the Patriot Act, that brought about a colossal change in which the United States government could literally do warrantless searches and seizures of people. So that set a precedent. And then there was the spying on Americans that also set a precedent. And WikiLeaks has revealed the extent of that. And since all of that already happened, it was easy to then, during the January 6th scenario, during the January 6th trials, for the Democrats to go after the Trump supporters who went into the Capitol on January 6th and then do the same thing to them. So now that we have the Trump administration at the helm, instead of saying we will never do this again, we will never prosecute people without due process, what they're doing is exactly what the Democrats did, and using that same sort of domestic terrorist approach to go after now what they could consider to be the left, which is the Palestinian issue is one of those issues that's actually like a support for Julian Assange. It's actually beyond the left-right paradigm. It's actually, you'll find people who are supportive of Palestinians who are conservative, just as much as you'll find people who are liberals. The problem is the young people in the U.S. tend to be more liberals, and so this is why the right says, oh, it's just a bunch of liberals in universities, because that's generally the population you get. So that's the spin. It's just a bunch of woke idiots who support terrorists. But in reality, they're using the Biden administrations, the former Trump administration, the Obama administration and then the Bush administration's policies that have been enacted up until this very point to push a complete extreme that of what Donald Trump is doing, completely and totally also being ignored by the fact that Trump is also trying to bring peace in Ukraine via these negotiations with Russia. So Trump is hoping that all of the things that he's doing there, all of the focusing on the via Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, using them and using this idea that he's going after the deep state to actually enact some of the most fascistic policies we have seen in the United States. And it's a game of distracting the public and selling them this whole idea that this isn't free speech. This is about protecting American U.S. security. And if you look at who supported Donald Trump, and even now we're seeing like the likes of people like Scott Ritter talk about Iran shouldn't have nuclear weapons, but ignore the fact that Israel has them and say, well, this is just an agreement. What we're seeing here is this U.S. patriotism, this jingoism, be the thing that really tries to drive a wedge in society. And you basically just have these two warring sides once again. They're trying to make it seem like it's just liberals versus conservatives when it's really just the U.S. government passing the baton, as Pasta likes to say, passing the baton from one administration to the other. And let's remind everybody, this is the most Zionist administration. We have literally sitting Zionists who love Israel. So they're not going to change this. And I think more than a war with Iran, guys, I think what they want with Iran is they want regime change. Because that will be less costly, less of a risk for the United States, and it could result in the same thing. It could result in control of all of this. But this is where I think we need to point out that foreign policy is our domestic policy. We're watching that happen in real time.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out, too, that the George W. Bush administration that we talked about, the Patriot Act that also was pushed through, how many things that came out of that. What we're seeing today with the Houthis, right? The whole situation with Donald Trump looking like he just came off the golf course, his fat ass with the hat on, listening to the headsets and watching shit as they're bombing the Houthis. Well, you know, Caleb Maupin had reported the fact that Donald Trump really shouldn't have designated the Houthis as a terrorist organization, but he did that because of the AUMF that every single congressman voted for except for Barbara Lee at the time, was pushed through George W. Bush right after the Twin Towers went down, is the linchpin which allows him to legally go out and bomb what has been designated as the terrorist. That's happening right in front of our face. So you got the Patriot Act, the AUMF Act, and we also have something called the HAVA Act, the Help America Vote Act, right? Which was which pretty much took our election system and compartmentalized it and allowed it to be offspringed into private zombie companies, which control the counting and the mechanism in which our votes are taking place and processed. So, I mean, there are so many things. Like I said, it's just one administration after the other. He's using so many things right now that were put in place for him to use. That's why I say it's just the baton being handed over from one administration to the other. And so much came out of that George W. Bush administration right there.
Yeah. Yeah, these administrations are interchangeable, and we need more people to be just as angry on both sides of this. And I hope that you occasionally see some MAGAs saying
not enough,
right? Occasionally, but not nearly as enough. So it is work. It seems like this campaign he's doing of domestic terrorism is working on his base right now, and I don't know at what point they say no. This is enough. I mean, Trump single-handedly got the Republican Party to move towards him in 2015 when he out loud called out the Bush regime and said that was wrong. Iraq was wrong. And he said it right to Jeb Bush's face, a very famous moment where he said he took that's where he got the party on board. He said, we're not going to do this anymore. Yeah. This is all wrong. And now here we are. He's going through exactly the motions of Bush and Cheney. Yep. And like Craig said, it's every administration is just interchangeable. There might have been a little tiny hiccup in Trump's first administration. just a little tiny hiccup, but generally speaking, it's the same thing every single time, and it's been that way our whole lifetimes. So yeah,
It's all bullshit. He gives everybody hot air. He talked about these executive orders for, first of all, are just symbolic, right? It should be everything we're against. We understand it's just marketing they're giving us, the way the process is supposed to work, but it's all about checks and balances, power of the purse, what Congress has advocated to do, what they're supposed to be doing versus what the president can do. We don't want executive orders. And it's a shame when we see the right go, well, that's what Biden did. Yeah, but we were saying when Biden was doing it, it wasn't the right thing to do. Now, how does that justify it? You know what I'm saying? But everything he does, it's just hot air. His latest executive order, the one right after eliminating the Department of Education, which was, once again, it's just hot air. It's symbolic. He can't do that anyways. Even if you don't like the Department of Education, there's a way of doing it. You can't just say, I'm going to get rid of it. I'm the king. I got to get rid of it. You have to go to Congress, get this. But you have a fully controlled Republican Congress over here, right? Okay. The latest one where he says he wants to kind of, change the way elections work. He wants to ignore the Constitution again, which is embedded in the Constitution, that the states have a right to the right to choose the way the election process takes place. If you want to change that, okay, change that. But it's just hot air, the things he's talking about. If he was really serious about giving us real systemic change, he would talk about repealing the HAVA Act, the Help America Vote Act, right there, because that is the linchpin to everything evil in our elections. It outsourced our public elections to private entities. He's not serious about it. He's just giving us hot air, and there's going to be no real change. There's going to be more acceleration and more of the state censoring your voices and controlling the narrative, but less real systemic change that's going to put freedoms back into the hands of the people. And it's just hypocrisy at its finest right now.
Yeah, 100%. So I mean, at this point, we can expect more arrests, more disappearances, more and more people defending this stuff. And it's too bad. And I just hope that the colleges, like, I mean, we saw Columbia, fold kind of to what, when you take the money away. And this is something that you know what? Let me go ahead and bring this tweet back up. We were talking about this, and we brought this up with Steve Kirsch, but I want to bring this up again. This is important. RFK Jr. spin about this, and he's using the HHS. He's using his own Twitter account. It's not his Twitter account. It's the HHS Twitter account. And he's talking about this. It's insane. This is absolutely insane. And he's calling this.
What does the HHS stand for again, Matt?
That's Health and Human Services.
So what the fuck has that got to do with this?
What is he doing? Secretary Kennedy, Health and Human Services Secretary. He starts with, okay, well, let's bring up October 7th, then let's call that a Holocaust. Well, that's a great starting point, dude. Real great one. Instead of inspiring universal condemnation, the October 7th Holocaust triggered a global wave of anti-Semitism. That's the narrative he's going on. That's the spin. And he's saying all this stuff is about Trump cracking down on this and getting everything back. Now, the reason why this is important is we know he's lying about October 7th Holocaust. Obviously, he's not that stupid. But this part's also important. The last sentence, I'm glad Columbia has agreed to the first step. Really, they agreed, or were they pushed into something because they were taking money away and said, you can't get this money back? So RFK knows how corruption works. He knows how big pharma corruption works. He knows what happens when you bribe people, or when you blackmail them, or when you deprive them of funds, or when you say we'll only give you. He knows how all that works. He's talking about the COVID. You get bonuses if you did all that shit. So why would you say, oh, Columbia's cooperating? So this is how we do business. This is how we conduct business now. The HHS secretary, this is how we conduct business. We threaten colleges, and they have to cave to our needs. And then we're going to, as he says, restore. It's going to restore itself as a garden of tolerance, reason, compassion, and respect. Total corruption, total bullshit. Fee, what are your thoughts? I mean, obviously I don't think you're holding your breath that Kennedy is going to do anything for us otherwise, but he's just pushing this. He's
Fam's
pushing
Maha.
this.
Fam's Maha.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is what the reason Kennedy's even in the position he's in, right? Because he completely, totally wrapped Zionism up into a gigantic hug and took it and ran with it. I mean, this is why Kennedy was confirmed. This is why Tulsi was confirmed. This is what people need to understand. You're not going to have opposition, actual genuine opposition to the status quo in the current form that the US government is at. And so that's why it's really frustrating when people every 4 years pretend that none of that is real, or pretend that everything in the election system is real and that they can actually change anything by voting every 4 years. We are not going to get out of this via electoral politics. We just aren't. I mean, it's just we're literally experiencing multiple genocides right now, and not just in Gaza, one that restarted, but also now in Syria. And by the way, one thing I wanted to mention, Matt, was that Mahmoud Khalil was an actual British agent pro-regime change in Syria. He was used and worked to overthrow Bashar al-Assad. And still, in spite of all of that, in spite of being a pawn to the US foreign policy of regime change, he was still manipulated and completely threatened and completely thrown under the bus by the very institutions and the very people who were supposed to protect him for selling out. And this, I'm not bringing this up to throw more fire against the guy, but these are just facts. I mean, this is well known in the activist community. He was what you would call a milquetoast liberal activist, which there are many of them. That doesn't justify what is happening to him. It doesn't at all justify how he's being treated and how he is being persecuted, and let alone the fact that anybody deserves some sort of due process in the United States, regardless of their immigration status. But somebody with a green card actually has more leverage than just a regular person or somebody without papers. And somebody with a green card who actually did the bidding of the State Department. If somebody like that is still being persecuted for being pro-Palestinian, is essentially it, for being against the genocide, then we're in a really sticky situation, because people thought, well, maybe now that the war in Ukraine is over and the Donald Trump administration is going to take over, YouTube will come back and we'll be able to say what we want. No, you will not, because now if you speak out against Zionism, or if you speak out against what's happening to these people who are being taken into foreign prisons without any sort of due process, then you're also going to be targeted. And you're going to be called some sort of woke liberal idiot. And they're just going to label you that the same way, for example, that the liberals labeled the people on the right as crazy conspiracy theorists, whatever. And so now, again, nobody's rights are being protected, because it's this back and forth game. And it's really, really scary how quickly we're descending into fascism. But Trump, from the beginning of this presidency, was hailed as the guy that was actually going to bring on some sort of revolution against the deep state, once again, in spite of the people he put behind him.
Yeah, this is so infuriating and so depressing. I'm depressed hearing this, and like even a guy like that who was doing the bidding for them is thrown under the bus like this. It does go to show you what do we have? All we have is our principles and morals, right? Because they're going to come for all of us anyways. You might as well not sell out before they take you down. Maybe that's the lesson here. Everyone watching at home, the lesson is keep your principles, keep your morals. Don't become a Mahmoud. Hey, don't become an RFK Jr. Keep your
Bernie Sanders or Tulsi Gabbard. What's the point of selling out?
The list is so long of sellouts, and that's why. Anyway, it's funny because I called the show today. How do you spot a fake populist? And here we go. The list is so long. It's insane. How many of us are even left? But again, it's because we act out of principle. We act out of courage. We act out of conviction, and from there you get consistency. It's not hard for us to be on the right side of an issue. The only time we have a hard time is that we have to gather information. That's the hard part. Once you gather the information, all the information's there. It's not easy. It's not hard for us to choose a side. It's pretty easy because we're just on the side of consistency and morality and humanitarianism. That's it. But if you're playing team sports and you're in a tribal mindset and you're captured or whatever your excuse is, you end up having to twist words and maneuver and say things like Palestinians are the most pampered people on the planet, and Joe Biden's my friend. Joe Biden's my. So it's like the list is so long. We've seen it so many times, but we can keep our morality in check and our humanitarian in check. And that's it. That's all we can do.